The main character of this story is Yui. She's going to do most of the narration during this one-shot chapter. It starts off with her talking about the town she grew up in and how she can see Mount Fuji, and ever since she was a kid, she would just sit there and gaze at it, of how beautiful it is, and just staring at it made her feel fresh and new again, and she always hated the thought of going back home, a gloomy mess it is. The whole place is dripping with grease, the floors, the ceiling, the walls. Her dad runs a barbecue business on the first floor, but the ventilation in the shop was terrible. The greasy air just swept upstairs and hang around. Yui mentions that her mom has been gone for a long time, so there's never any cleaning done, and the futons in the closet were stained and sticky, and no matter how often they did their laundry, it'll just get greasy again. Yui talks about how her dad is just an oily guy. He had a strange smell, a greasy smell, and that she has a brother that's 2 years older than her, a sadistic freak that won't leave her alone, but lately picked up a weird habit. He'll go into the kitchen cupboard and get out salad oil and drink it down like Coca-Cola. Yui caught him doing this one time, but he ended up getting on to her saying that don't tell dad. The sticky walls, the gross smell coming off of dad, as well as the bully of her brother. Yui started hating the grease, but she became sensitive to it. She would become more aware about the amount of oil in the air in the room, and she was able to detect it. Her thinking to her head, the current saturation level is 50, now exceeding 50. Please be careful around open flames. The name she came up for it was saturation level for the density of oil in the air. Yui catches her brother drinking cooking oil under the cupboard, then starts thinking saturation levels approaching 60. Then her brother hit puberty and started getting his first pimples. They spread all over his face. Him walking to school or from school, these group of girls start laughing at him. Then a group of bullies start beating up on him, calling him Crater Face and Goro. He fell on one of the bullies. The bully responds, "You got grease all over me. You better pay me 50,000 yen by tomorrow." Yui is watching this all happen. Later, Goro's mad at her saying, "You're laughing at me, weren't you? You're thinking I had it coming. Thought I deserved that, didn't you?" Keeps kicking her until the dad takes him off of her. Then Goro goes after the dad saying, "It's your fault my face is like this. I've been contaminated by your filthy grease." Then begins to punch him. They go onto the ground. Yui's watching. Then finally fighting stops and the dad asks Yui for a towel. He wipes off the oil but instantly comes right back. After the fight, Goro stays in his room all day. He drank and drank the cooking oil. Then suddenly he calls his sister Yui because they're all out of grease and he wants her to go get some more. And he wants a new futon too and complains how this one is awful, and he starts stressing out. He presses his skin so hard that some of the pimples pop. It gets on Yui. Her reaction's like, "Gross." Goro says, "What? Did you just call it gross?" And he's like, "Alright, you think my body's gross? All this grease like this, huh?" He gets an idea. He gets on top of her, presses his hands against his face, and all the ooze from the pimples start dropping onto her. Then he says, "Serves you right. You think you're better than me? You all do." And says, "Watch, I'll cut every last one of you." He doesn't care. Everyone has to die. He's going down as the foulest villain the world has ever seen. Then says, "Send me to hell. Go on. I want you to bring on the lake of fire. No one could fry me. The shoot alone would be enough to fill Mount Fuji to the brim." And says he's going to start with her first and starts choking her. Yui's begging him to stop. Then suddenly the dad hits Goro over the head with the pan. He says, "Forgive me," but what choice did he have? Then asks Yui to help him move Goro's body. This next panel, the two men are looking for somewhere to eat, and one of them recommends Dharma Barbecue. The other guy's like, "Nah, they don't have no good quality meat." But he ends up giving it a try anyways. It turns out to be the dad's restaurant. One of the working men asks the dad for the good stuff, but the dad apologizes saying that they ran out as of yesterday. So the man asks, "So when you gonna get it in next?" The dad looks kind of nervous. We're back to Yui on the ground saying saturation level currently at 70, and she starts narrating saying that this is about the time she had the strange dreams. It starts with her looking at Mount Fuji, then suddenly erupting. Instead of it being lava, it's grease. It floods the street, then suddenly covers Yui. She's walking around town. Everything's covered in grease. The intercom is saying citywide saturation level is at steady 90% and has advised that citizens should be careful around the presence of flames. And she says it's always the same. She remembers it vividly. It makes her sick. And while after waking up, the sight of such a beautiful mountain never quite cheer her up the same way. Yui is not feeling good and she's growing pimples, acne. Before she knew it, it spread all over her face and she stayed in her room. Her dad checks up on her saying that maybe going for a walk can help her, but she just yells at him to get out of the room. Then her saying current saturation level is 80% while falling asleep. She's having the same dream again, a Mount Fuji erupting grease, but then suddenly wakes up and sees her dad force feeding her grease. She's shocked by this and slaps it out of his hand, then asks, "Dad, why?" He says, "It's not a big deal. I just thought you might be hungry." But she makes a point that even if she was, she don't drink grease. It's her brother Goro. The dad recalls, "Oh yeah, you're right. He was the one that liked it." Yui confronts him and asks him how long he's been doing this and that she's been feeling sick lately. She continues to question him, why he's been trying to get her to drink it. Then finally it connects. He's trying to make her like her brother Goro, but the dad walks out of the room trying to make it look like Yui is crazy. And after that, Yui is on guard. She felt that she was no longer safe to sleep. The next panel shows the business closed. Yui opens the door and sees her dad drinking grease. But however, after the restaurant was closed, the saturation level in the house hasn't dropped any, and her dad's skin got greasier and greasier, and she can feel the saturation levels in the grease just by getting near him. After he takes a bath, he leaves a thick film of grease in the tub, and the futon in the wardrobe was dirtier than before. The house saturation level held a steady 90% and higher. The grease started dripping from the ceiling. It looked like slow falling rain. Then she starts to narrate at last. One day, it finally happened. She hears something. She starts going down the stairs. She creaks open the door and sees her dad chopping over a leg, his own leg. Yellow-brown goops are gushing out. At the end of the leg, it was no longer blood, but grease. Only grease. Then finally, the saturation levels are now 100%.